Hello and welcome to the Smart Connections podcast and the Talk the Path podcast. My name is Anna Sanderlin. I am a Warmline facilitator for the University of Memphis Smart Center. The University of Memphis School of Social Work Smart Research, Training, and Treatment Center aims to provide evidence-based interventions for school-based mental health programming, increase access for school-based behavioral health programming in underserved areas, offer training on best practices in telebehavioral health, develop opportunities to research the use of technology in practice, and provide direct services to the state's most vulnerable populations. You can call the Smart Center at 901-678-1636. The University of Memphis Smart Center, in conjunction with the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, would like to present the Pathways to Behavioral Health Careers Project. The goals of the Pathways Project are to provide education and information on the various career opportunities in the field of behavioral health through presentations, increase interest in students in the field of behavioral health, provide opportunities for guidance with information regarding college, university programming that result in degrees for professions in the field of behavioral health, connect students with students in behavioral health programs and professionals in the field for further research. This podcast will feature students and professionals in the field to give a clear picture of the daily duties of these roles and how they help support their communities.
Well, my name is Marian Evilsizer. I'm an elementary school counselor at Overall Creek Elementary in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. This is actually my 16th year as a school counselor. I did 1 year as a middle school and then found that elementary was where my heart was. So I have been in elementary since. I have a bachelor's of science in psychology that I obtained from Middle Tennessee State University. And then I got my master's of education at Northeastern State University in Oklahoma. So that I have worked in Tennessee, yes, but I also spent 8 years in Tampa, Florida, working also as a school counselor in an elementary setting. Trying to think whatever else I could tell you about myself. Before that, I always worked in a school. I was a behavior tech in a behavioral classroom setting at a high school in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and then I was a paraprofessional in a K through 3 severe autism room while I was getting my master's. So I've always worked in a school, but at different roles.
And was there a reason why you decided middle school wasn't for you? Why elementary school over middle school?
Definitely. And of course, we are gradually seeing the changes of just developmentally where students are and their maturity. The exposure to a lot of things has become more out of my comfortability to talk about. And, there are different levels of, or just different views and how people have about the world in general. So for me to comfortably be able to talk to someone, be unbiased as much as I can, I feel like middle school posed as a challenge because some parents are very much involved and then some are not. And then again, trying to get that partnership between both seemed a lot more difficult in that middle school setting.
Okay. Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit more about your journey to your career path?
Yes. So in high school, I just was able to, I had a school counselor that was kind of provided me with an idea of what they were able and capable of doing. I initially wanted to be a high school school counselor just because I felt like this specific school counselor was able to kind of get me on the path of going to school, what I specifically wanted to go for, applying for those colleges, looking at scholarships, and again, just trying to have more of a personal impact on students. That's what kind of gave me the motivation to go forth and go and pursue school counseling as a career and profession.
I love it. I love hearing people have positive interactions with their school counselors and having it make them want to be school counselors. Because I think a lot of people too have the opposite reaction. They want to be a school counselor because they didn't have a good role model and they want to be that role model for somebody else. Yeah. So I think it's interesting to hear. I think you're the second person we've done these interviews with who's had a good experience with their counselor, and it has turned into them wanting to be a good school counselor. So I enjoy that. One of our next questions is, did you always know you wanted to be a school counselor? So I know you said you did think like early on that you wanted to be a high school counselor. Was there, other than, having a good experience with your counselor, was there a reason that was what you always knew you wanted to do? Or was there something else that, really drew you to that profession?
Well, I always, like, when I was little, I wanted to be a pediatrician. Then once I initially got into high school, I found like I really liked history. So history teacher, always kind of like a job of serving others in a sense. And then I think, in high school, they allowed us to take those interest inventories, which then gives you a variety of jobs that maybe would best fit you, your qualities, your traits, and your interests. So those, that definitely kind of guided. And then again, the experience that I had with my high school counselor kind of topped it off.
Okay. I always like hearing about people's reason for going into all the things they do, just because it's so vastly different for everybody. There's always, and I mean, I know for myself, I thought I wanted to be a teacher, and then thought I wanted to be a nurse, and just like there's so many different levels of it, and there's so many different things that change your mind, especially when you're really young, that something catches your interest for a minute and you're decided that that's got to be what you do for the rest of your life. And I think it's always interesting to hear people's story like that.
Yeah. And like Anna was saying, it's just different levels and little bits and pieces of life that come together that are a determining factor on what we should do with our lives and how we could contribute to society. So it's just really great that you were able to tunnel all of your energy towards doing something to make a difference. So that's really great. So if you had the opportunity to go back in time and choose a different path, what would you choose? Why or why not?
I don't know. And I mean, I think, sometimes there are days that you're like, oh my gosh, I can work a snow cone machine in Florida and be happy. But I really love my job. I mean, every day is interesting. Every day is different. I have been able to make connections and build relationships with students and families that kind of, brighten my day. And then, even after they leave my school and they see me out in the community and they remember my name, even as crazy as it sounds, they remember it. And then, of course, I mean, it's just the things that they come and tell me. And then, of course, I'm here at the elementary level too, but they hug me. I mean, if you ever, I feel like if you ever want to feel like you are famous and like the most widely known, you work in an elementary school. And I mean, that just makes everything so much better. But yeah, I love my job. And yes, some days are difficult. And working with some students is difficult. But I don't know that I would want to choose another job. I mean, that's what I even joke sometimes, if my husband made enough money that I could stay at home. I don't know that I would, because I like what I do.
If there was like a way, would you have done everything exactly the same as you did to get where you are? Would you have done everything exactly like if you could go back and not necessarily choose a different career, but would you go back and do everything the exact same way that you did?
I think, and I did, like in my undergrad, I, majored in psychology and I had a minor in secondary ed. I think I probably would have double majored in teaching. I feel like the profession of school counseling has changed. Again, this is my 16th year. From when I first started to now, and the things that I have been in charge of and responsible for with the academic growth of students and having a better understanding of, that aspect. I think would have helped me a lot more. Yes, it was more like in the dirt, in the trenches training and just learning from all of the other experts that I worked with. But I think that probably would have been a change that I would have made if I were to go back.
Do you have, I want to ask both your favorite thing about being a school counselor, but also what is the most challenging thing about being a school counselor, you think?
Okay.
Oh, my favorite thing again is like those connections and relationships that I've been able to build with my students and their families. Seeing that, parents come in and saying how much they appreciate, you know, me working with their kid, or just, the comfortability that they have with sharing with me about things that are going on at home. That makes me feel good about the job that I'm doing. Um, as for difficulties, I think, I sometimes feel that I've become desensitized a little bit, which kind of scares me. And then sometimes I have to get myself grounded and do some self reflections and, let myself know that, I still have feelings and I still very much care about the students, and that, it's okay to express those feelings as well.
I think that's really an interesting way to put it. I think doing this job, this kind of work, I mean, mental behavioral health in general, I think all of the aspects of it, there's, you see so much, and you see people, I mean, in every walk of life, you see them when they're children. We have some LCSWs who see them when they're having their own children. And so I think it's so interesting to me to talk about, to hear you talk about, being a little bit desensitized to it just because you see so much of that. And then remembering, that everybody has their own something going on. And being a part of the mental behavioral health field, you meet people from every little piece of it, I think. And I think that's, I don't know if that, resonates at all, as far as like remembering that while it may like feel a little bit desensitized to you, the work that you do and the work that other people in your field do, makes such an impact on other people. And I think that's definitely important to remember, at least for me, thinking about it.
And I think, and with that, like surrounding yourself, I feel like with people that almost have that background knowledge of behavioral health helps as well. Like when we have our personal issues or things that go on in our own families, that are able to, again, remind you of like, hey, remember this, remember when we learned this. I think that helps a lot as well. And you feel like, oh, yeah, I remember that. I'm not so weird after all.
Did you find school wise, like going back to your education, I know you said you got your bachelor's in psychology and then went on to get your master's. Did you find that like your path in that way was fairly regular? I know like some people talk about, high school to straight to bachelor, straight to master's. Was yours fairly typical like that? Or was there anything that was thrown a wrench in there?
Very much. Not a wrench necessarily. My husband and I married, and we had our first child when we were in undergrad. So very much unexpected. But he supported me because he knew that, what I wanted to do. So I just finished. Whatever, what I was set out to do was to get my master's. So I finished my undergrad, went straight into my master's program, and worked the entire time as well. And then was able to get my first job, and has been able to, go on since. So there's definitely life wrenches. But I think, that mindset of knowing what I wanted to do and also knowing how to get there helped me just push through.
Yeah, I think that's something people definitely need to hear, that, life will throw its punches at you, but I think having that knowledge of what you want to do and what you feel like you should be doing helps tremendously. One of the things we've talked about in some of these interviews, and just even in my personal life, is the necessity of breaks and the necessity of rest, so
Mhm.
that you can sort of, if you're struggling with thinking something is right for you, then, take that break and take the time to really make sure that it is, so that when life throws those, wild out there situations at you, you have the presence of mind to be like, yes, this is what I want to do, and I can do it through these challenges that are thrown at me.
Mhm.
So I think it's definitely good to hear, you say you had those challenges, and yet you made it to where you are, and you made it to the and on the path that you were taking. And it still led you to where you have gotten now. So that's definitely something I think people will be interested to hear.
Yeah. And even with how far you've come so far, you're in the forefront of making such a change and difference in people's lives, well, children's lives as well as their families, because you bring a factor that a lot of people will overlook, or sometimes parents aren't aware of the things and the challenges that their children face, and you're able to bring that to them and give them ways to manage those things. So, with the things that you do on a daily basis, is there anything that you would tell someone or advise someone as far as self-care and setting boundaries and just being able to manage everything that you do on a daily basis?
I definitely think, there's always going to be work that needs to get done. I mean,
Right.
that's just how it is. I think, you prioritize what is important to you, especially when you're looking at your values. And I think those need to be the forefront. And I think you're going
Mhm.
to find that there are a lot more people like you that have similar values and priorities. Family is very much important to me. I very rarely take work home. That doesn't mean that I don't check my emails, but I very rarely take work home because, again, there's always going to be work that needs to be done. I do what I can when I'm here. I try to stay organized and on top of things. Um, but I also try to keep in mind, too, before leaving, as a parent myself, would that, this child's parent want me to call them and let them know that this happened? So it's just trying to make sure that, I'm doing everything that I can while I am here at work.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, like one of the ways that, you can feel good about yourself and like get yourself you're like the center of a lot of people's minds is being in elementary school, and those kids, it's hard to get their affection, but once you have it, it's definitely an incredible feeling. I do a lot of babysitting and a lot of just, watching out for other people in my family, and when you get those little ones to say that you're their favorite, or or you're, someone they want to look out for, or look to for help, or look to as an example for them, I definitely know that's the kind of thing that feels very good, to hear, for sure. um, I was going to say, our last question for you that we have written is, what would you suggest to young people who are trying to identify whether or not a possible career in the behavioral health field is right for them?
I think it's definitely a good idea to mentor and observe. I think, even as a school counselor, there are different roles that are given depending on what school you're in, what county you're in, what state you're in. So I think, we still have school counselors in the county that we're in. We're kind of separated because we're city schools and then we have the county schools. Um, but I know the county schools are just now making that transition from school counselors not being part of the special area rotation. I have never been a part of a special area rotation, even when working in Tampa. So I think, going in and mentoring to have an idea of the variety of settings that you could be placed in and the responsibilities that go with that. I feel very blessed, like working for the city schools, and that I'm able to really do my job. I'm able to do that small group counseling, that individual counseling, um, you know, tier one, which is our school wide behavioral program, as well as tier two and tier three for the more intensive and layered supports. But I'm able to devote my energy and time on what I truly went to school for. Whereas, again, you may not see that in every school. So I think mentoring and just not sticking with just one person or one setting, but going to multiple. Um, so again, you have an idea of what could be set before you.
I like that. I know a lot of people get in their heads that, this one thing that I've thought about forever is exactly what I have to do for the rest of my life. And they get stuck in that. I have fallen into that myself where I've thought, this is what I've chosen. I have to stay here, stay in my lane kind of thing. And I think if I had taken the time to, mentor and see all of the different facets of the kind of work that we're doing, the kind of work that we're talking about, would have definitely helped me in my my journey to figuring out where my little piece of this world is, for sure. Did you have any other questions that you would like to ask?
I do. From hearing your answers so far, I know that you really enjoy what you do. So is this something you would consider retiring from, or is there anything else that you would like to um dive into?
Actually, no, that's what I think, it's more or less like I don't have an idea of a change of job. It's more like, when am I going to be able to retire when my kids get out of college, which is like 20 years from now. So like, will I be able, I'll be able to retire then maybe. But it's not an idea of like, oh, well, what can I do next? It's like, this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm going to do.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah, that's really I think it's a rare thing to hear when it comes to the mental health field, because a lot of opportunities are pretty broad. So there are other things that you can do. So the fact that you're so interested and invested in what you're doing now and the impact that you do have on those children, I feel like you said, they grow up and then they see you out and then they speak, and it's like, okay, well, I had him a decade ago, and now he's all grown up and making his own stamp on the world. So I think that's really we need people like you in this industry that are sticking to what they want to do and just having their print on the world,
and sticking to what they're good at too.
Right.
Because it's not that you're, sticking in something that you're just sort of trying out for a little while. Like you're good at this. You're making, an impact in what you do. And I think that's very important.
I agree.
Do you have any questions for us at all?
I mean, and then that's it. This is just my 2 cents on the behavioral mental health. Like, we, again, in the city schools, we have lots of partnerships with mental health agencies and grant funded programs that come into our schools that are able to provide that mental health counseling that I am not knowledgeable or truly experienced with, which has been really great, because a lot of families, whether it's a financial difficulty with paying for it, or it's a convenience thing, being able to do that and provide that for our students here in school has been really good, because again, mental health is coming, I feel like, it's becoming more acceptable in a sense of, we're not all perfect. There is no perfect. And just validating the different views and feelings that we have, as well as the coping skills that we've been taught, whether they're right or wrong. I think it's been really good, again, to have those services in place. I feel like for those mental health providers, especially when looking, I feel like there needs to be an increase of pay. Personally, like, I have a daughter that receives counseling, and who we receive counseling through, those counselors are, in a sense, getting their hours to gain licensure. So that licensure then determines them moving on to make more money, which makes sense. So I think, when looking at, and taking into consideration, those interests that you have and what you're wanting to do and the path that you're wanting to take, is it because you want more money, or is it that you truly want to make an imprint and, provide something for someone that they're lacking. Because I mean, I definitely don't make as much money as I would like, uh, but I do it because I like it, and I do
Mhm.
see the benefits of what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly powerful for people to hear, that some people are in it for different motivations. They have, different reasons for wanting to do this kind of work. And I don't know very many people who are making a ton of money doing this kind of work, but all of the ones who have stayed in it for a very long time and who are good at it are making such a huge difference, even if their paycheck isn't exactly what is deserving of the work that they're doing. So I think it's definitely powerful for people to hear that. Well, we appreciate your time today, and thank you so much for being a part of this project.
No problem. I hope I was helpful.
Thank you so much for tuning in to listen to our podcast, brought to you by the Smart Connections podcast from the Smart Center at the University of Memphis, as well as the Pathways to Behavioral Health Careers project. If you or anyone you know needs any information from the Smart Center, please contact us at 901-678-1636 or email us at smartcenter@memphis.edu. You can also learn more about us at our website, memphis.edu/smartcenter.